Just list the stations on your HD radio, and we are right under KPFT 90.1 FM HD1. Boop. Simple. The People's News airs on KPFT 90.1 FM HD2 on Sundays at noon, Mondays at 9 a.m., and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Also, live and past shows can be found on our Facebook page and at kpft.org.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host at KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Folks, we are live again. We are back in business. Anyway, folks, we have a great show for you today. We have a lot to talk about, and this one you are going to want to call in because we got to talk. 713-526-5738. All lines are open and ready to go. 713-526-5738. Let me get to the preamble. The title of the show today is Hurricane Ian Should Teach Something About the Government and Private Sector. It's all about risk. We're also going to talk about what occurred in San Francisco. When we fight, we win. San Francisco airport workers end strike after pay victory. And we may also touch on the two key battles. How do we keep our democracy? We will keep our democracy not by hook or crook, but by the vote. So before we get started, as I said, one of my main pet peeves right now is to tell all our citizens right here in Houston and throughout the United States. Remember, folks, the reason why many try their best to stop you to vote is because voting is so important. So please make sure to go register to vote. Here in Texas, I think the deadline is October 10th or 11th. Check it out. Go to your county office and make sure, register to vote. Exercise the right that many have bled for. Exercise the right that makes this country free. Anyhow, folks, we're going to have a great time today. The risk, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Want to hear from you guys. Did you see the coverage of the hurricane? There are so many things that got to me in the coverage. You know, you can see it and you feel the pain of the people in Florida, in all these different towns where the hurricane is decimating. And then you ask yourself a question. Why is it that so many people decided to stay? Why is it that so many people ultimately will die of a hurricane that, while bad, we had places to put them? It's a new psychology, folks. It's that new psychology that says, I don't want to tell anybody to tell me what to do. I don't want to listen to people in authority. I don't want to have people in authority. And with that, we paid with our lives. We paid with our lives during the COVID epidemic. We paid our lives during hurricanes. We paid our lives with so many things going forward. Let's try to refrain from that. But anyway, let's talk about these risk factors. 713-526-5738. We're open for calls. We'd like to hear your point of view. No point of view is not tolerated here. We want to hear everything from you. Kush 8 BO dollar. Welcome to Politics Done Right online at KPFT FM. Anyhow, you have to ask yourself the question. You know, I've flown into Florida so many times, and crossing into Miami, you see those beautiful canals, and you know what? I didn't realize what I was flying over. I saw those canals, and I always wondered, what about that hurricane? What about that hurricane when it comes? What about that storm surge? And why would we invest so much in building so much in these areas? And kept on asking myself, who is going to pay for these buildings that so many are profiting from? And you keep asking yourself the question, and you keep asking yourself the question. It's right here in Houston as well. We had the aquifer, not the aquifers, we had the reservoirs out here. The Barker Cypress Reservoir in Houston. We had the other reservoir that I can't recall its name right now. And what happens? You weren't supposed to build in it, and here comes the builders, here comes the real estate guys that find a way to say, folks, we're going to build here, and the poor folks who buy it are not sure. Risk, again, risk, hurricanes, and more. Tag, come on in. Tag, I think you are going to be hot in 1 second. Go ahead, Tag.
Hey, Ernesto, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, calling from mid-Michigan,
Yes.
listening online.
Thank you first of all, thank you for listening. And please remember to let folks know about this station that is catering to everyone. Talk to me. What do you want to talk about?
Well, you had mentioned Hurricane Ian,
Yes.
and, the way it's been covered, but I have a little different view about that,
Okay.
and it kind of departs quickly from our coverage. And what's really getting me right now is the pipeline over in Denmark in the Baltic Sea, right?
Yes, sir. That's a very dangerous occurrence that nobody's talking enough about.
Well, to me, the worst thing is that what it does to our greenhouse gases.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, because of this thing, we have increasingly warming planet, which then leads to higher sea levels and more hurricanes. Worse hurricanes in the long run, and I don't think anybody's really paying a lot of attention to what's going on there. What you mentioned.
Well, with the hurricane that's occurring in Florida, we have a tendency to not walk, even though every American citizen has the ability to walk and chew gum at the same time. They have kids going to school, and at the same time, the mom or pop has to come home and cook, and at the same time, they have to think about what the kid's going to do. We can do that. Unfortunately, our leaders didn't have any interest in us doing that. But you bring up a very important point. Here we have a hurricane that was likely exacerbated by climate change, and here we have a huge climate event with what's occurring in the Baltic Sea with what you just explained, and it's not getting near the coverage that it should get. So you're absolutely right about that. Now let's talk about even the methane gas. The methane gas are orders of magnitudes more greenhouse effects than carbon dioxide. Yet you're correct. We're not talking about it.
Yes, and not only that, but what I see as the underlying driver behind this is that for me it seems like a punishment for our stance on Ukraine and especially Europe's stance on Ukraine, and that we're trying to promote democracy there, which you mentioned.
Yes.
And the fact is that somebody doesn't like democracy, doesn't want democracy in Ukraine. So this was, rather than actually nuking a power plant or throwing a local nuke bomb, this was a way for somebody to be able to say, well, yeah, we have the capability to make your life real miserable, and we're going to do that by doing something like Nord Stream bombing.
Oh, man, you hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what they want to show, that they can destabilize. They started with Nord Stream likely because it's not operational. In other words, it has gas in it, but there's no gas pumping. But you just claimed something, Tag, that is very important. And I wouldn't have mentioned it if you hadn't mentioned it. I think it's important what you just said, because here's the funny part about it. They could do that with the undersea on fiber cable as well. They could do it with a whole lot of these different things that we have connecting these continents, right? So when you say they just want to show you that they can make a whole lot of mischief around the world, even if we can't win the battle on the soils of Ukraine. So you're absolutely right about that. Folks, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. We have all lines open except for the one that Tag is talking on right now. Anything else you'd like to say, Tag?
Well, Ernesto, I think following the same train of thought is that I think the majority of Americans are running around with blinders on, and so they're only looking at what they're told to look at or even less, because it messes up their day-to-day logic and thinking about where they're at, like, oh, gas is so high or the shelves are empty. I mean, it's like, no, you really got to be thinking about what's coming down the pipeline for, and especially with Russia doing this around the world for, a long time. And now it's finally come to light, and got the blinders on, and they don't want us to think about it.
I think I'm losing you sometime, Tag. I don't know if that is on our end or your end, but I think it may be on your end. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just saying that people are running around with blinders on, and they want to be led to think about, the price of gasoline or how the shelves look in the supermarkets, but they don't think about this bigger picture of what's happening to our climate.
I want to stop you there because what you just said, I think every American needs to hear what you just said with us having blinders on. You're absolutely correct. We don't teach civics in school anymore. We don't teach critical thinking anymore. In other words, we just look at things superficially. You're correct in stating that we have blinders on. That's identical to saying that we're looking at things superficially. Let me do a station call right now. This is KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. We're coming to you live. Please, folks, this is also a call-in show now, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. All lines are open, minus tags, of course. So give us a call, 713-526-5738. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. All right, Tag, as you mentioned before, yes, it is absolutely true that folks have blinders on, but it's also the fact that we have been programmed this way since we stopped teaching civics in schools. I mean, there's so much we can do to make all Americans more productive, to make all Americans more engaged, to make all Americans realize that the government is we the people. And that is just educating them as to how government functions. When you don't do that, which is purposeful, that we don't do that, people don't feel a part of the system. They don't feel that they are in control, and that those are the things that happen. Anything else that you'd like to talk about before I move on?
Yeah, just real quickly, exactly what you're saying, I agree 100%, is that Americans don't understand what it takes to hold on to their democracy.
Right.
And so subsequently, they think if they have some guy that's a strong ruler and he's taking care of all their needs and politically, that's great. But they don't understand that it takes every one of us to have a voice in our democracy in order to keep this train on the tracks. And one last thing I want to say before I go is that part of that effort is to support KPFT. And in that support, we need to be calling in and voicing our opinions, because now KPFT has several call-in shows, which is fantastic. I thank Sandy for helping us do that. But the other thing is to go to kpft.org and plug the tip jar there a little bit, and so that we don't have to have the long fund drives. I think it's important that we do both. And so hopefully people will support your show and support Rourke and support everybody. I mean, it's the only way we're going to have a voice in this part of our democracy. But then we have to get out to the polls and vote. We have to support, the leaders that we want, and it takes a lot of work to have a good life here in America.
Well, Tag, thank you so kindly for calling. Thank you also for plugging all these shows and giving kudos to Sandy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is what community radio is all about. And one last thing, you talk about having the blinders on. We are here at KPFT to assist in opening those blinders. So thank you so kindly for having called KPFT 9.1 Politics.
And I want to advocate that people of the other persuasion call and get their opinions out too. It's not just about the Democrats or the left wing. It's everybody. This is a station for everybody.
Luckily, Tag, right now I'm reading from some of our conservatives online, and I'm about to read a couple of that right now. But folks, call 7. Thank you very much, Tag. Thank you,
Ernesto. Have a good day. Bye.
Egberto. Okay. Anyhow, 713-526-5738 is the number. All lines are open. If you want to speak to us, give us a call, 713-526-5738. Eric Hayes says, be sure to tune in to the hour-long prize fight tonight for governor. We are carrying that live tonight starting at 6 o'clock. p.m. Central Time, Eric. So thank you for pre-advertising that for us on Facebook. Also, Eric Hayes says, Egberto, do you think the Nordstrom gas explosion was on purpose? 300 feet below and thick steel. Not many can do clandestine thing like that. I think it was Russia who did that. And the reason I think it's Russia wants them to know we can do it with the pipeline. We can also do it with the underground cable. We can also do it with just about anything that you want. So please, let's play ball. Welcome aboard to the program, Eric Hayes, Lee Grant, and Kush B.O. $. James is in the house with us right now. We can also use more calls at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Lee Grant says, if we studied civics more, people would learn that they can't abolish the Electoral College just because they don't like the results of an election. I think they would learn that otherwise. Anyway, James, come on in. You are hot. James, you're on.
Hi. I was calling in to talk about the Nord Stream pipeline bombing.
Sure.
Am I correct in understanding we're kind of going along with the idea that Russia bombed their own pipeline?
I think that, look, we don't know, right? So anybody who says what goes on first have to have the humility to say, I don't know the facts. But if I were to look at what's going on around the world, the most likely person that would gain the most from a bombed Nord Stream to make a point would be Russia. But if you have an other theory, I would be more than happy to listen to that.
I definitely think that Russia has the least to gain from it.
Okay.
The Nord Stream and their ability to supply gas to Europe is their most powerful bargaining chip right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they control the taps.
Mm-hmm.
The gas is coming from Russia. If they wanted to cut off Europe, they would just turn off the taps.
Mm-hmm.
Easy as that. They don't need to do billions of dollars to their own infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
However, there has been a rising movement within Europe to push for peace so they can get gas and not struggle this winter.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, it seems like either the U.S. or possibly even Ukraine, but they were getting paid for the gas passing through their country. Europe, or rather Russia, was paying them.
Right.
So really, that leaves the U.S. with the most to gain from keeping Europe on our side, supporting the military-industrial complex.
James, let me tell you, that is not a far-fetched, your idea is not at all a far-fetched idea. It's actually a practical idea as well. There are two folks that stand to gain from that in that if Russia, but here's the thing, if Russia believes that the alliance will crack, then it makes no sense for Russia to do it, and it makes sense for the United States to do it. However, if Russia believes that the alliance will hold strong, and my thoughts based on what I have heard from even India and China is that the alliance is likely to stay strong because Russia no longer has a strong alliance with neither China or India, in that they have publicly rebuked Russia for their invading of Ukraine. So I think, like I said, neither you nor I know the actual facts, right? So mine's just speculation, yours just speculation. And both speculations, believe it or not, have merits. And it all depends on whether which one has more merit, I think, depends on whether the alliance was likely to hold strong or not. Your thoughts before we go to the other caller?
That is a useful thing to bear in mind, but like I said at the start, if Russia wanted to shut off the supply, they could just do that.
Yeah, but the idea is I think, and that's why I don't think that's why I think it's there to prove a bigger point than just oil. I think it's there to prove the point that, look, there are underground cables that are crisscrossing the Pacific and the Atlantic. And if we can blow up Nord Stream, we can actually blow up a cable as well. That's my thoughts. But, again, we are speculating. And what I tell our audience all of the times is when we are speculating, I say it's speculation. When it's facts, we also say it's facts. Anyway, James, thank you so kindly for calling. Please remember to keep giving us a call, 713-526-5738. It's a pleasure having had you on air. All right, Carl, come on in. Carl, you're hot.
Yeah, I was calling about you were talking about the flooding.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
With the canals.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about how the builders are, everybody just building them. The builders, they don't care because they know the people are coming from California to Texas. They're going to build wherever they want, where they want, and they don't care about the flooding or anything else because the homeowners are coming in, they're naive about the hurricanes, all the flooding we've had, and they know that they're going to sell the house either way, and the insurance are the ones that are profit off of it.
I mean, look. First of all, let me. 713-526-5738, folks, is the number to call in. 713-526-5738. You're absolutely right. I don't know if you are you here in Houston?
Yes.
Okay, so you know about the Barker Cypress Reservoir and the Barker and the Cypress Reservoir. You know as well that at first no buildings were supposed to be built in that area. Correct?
Correct.
And suddenly now it's filled up with a whole lot of buildings, and whenever we have these major floods, they're all flooded out. But the thing about it is that cost, even if it's them selling this stuff to naive Californians or whomever they're selling it to, it all costs us because it means our flood insurance goes up and all these other insurances go up. So shouldn't we really have a stake in that, in making sure that government does not provide these real estate, I like to call them real estate terrorists, right? Because that's what they do, right?
Exactly.
Shouldn't we actually be reining them in? But we have a sect in this country that doesn't want to have anything that deals with regulations. How do we handle that? If government comes in and say you can't build, you're trying to regulate me,
Exactly.
So
it's like in the Heights. The builders, they go in and they buy one house. They buy one house on say a quarter-acre lot, and they will put 4 houses, 4 stories tall, on that lot.
Right.
And they'll buy that lot for $150,000, $200,000, and they're going to sell them houses for $200,000 to $300,000.
Yes, each of them. Yes, and they're usually small. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unregulated. That's what really gets me about it.
That is what happens in Houston because we don't have zoning. We can do just about what we want to do in Houston. So that is amazing. But let me tell you, Carl, one of the reasons we have these types of programs, right, is to sort of enlighten folk. Let them know that, right now things are maybe bad. But ultimately, you have control. If you go out there and vote, and you vote your interest, not vote your ideology or party, if you vote your interest, things will work out. Anything else you'd like to say, Carl?
No, that's about it. I've done enough griping for the day.
All right. Well, Carl, that's not griping. That's just telling some truth.
Really,
and you take care, my
friend. It
friend.
really irritates me about our politicians.
Right.
How they just let everything go. And
right.
One thing that they don't realize is, if one of those houses catches on fire, a whole block is going to go up.
There you go. Exactly right.
I mean, they're not even 2 feet, 3 feet apart from each other.
Yeah, it is amazing. I don't even know how people keep their privacy in some of those homes. But
have a good day.
Thank you. You have a great day. Okay, folks, 713-526-5738. All of the lines are open. They're wide open. You can give us a call, 713-526-5738. As I said, the subject of the day is Hurricane Ian should teach something about the government and private sector. It's about risk. And so, as I mentioned before, in flying over Florida, you see all the canals and you see all the homes. And these builders out there usually, after having paid off politicians, get to do as they please, right? They build in these areas that require a bunch. Hell, DeSantis, when he was in Congress and New Jersey had its hurricane, he said, no, I don't want any help. Of course, we know we're going to help folks. But here's the deal. Many people think what's going on in Florida may be isolated, it's away from them or whatever. We're going to have to come to the state and realize that we are one country and what happens in one place happens everywhere. Whereas one place may have hurricanes, the other place may have tornadoes, the other place may have earthquakes, and there are certain things we know about these places. And if we allowed proper risk management, things would be so much better. Jeff is in the house. Oh, I guess he hung up, or Okay, they are taking this material. Okay, while he takes the material from Jeff or from Ted, I guess. Look, so therefore, my friends, whatever happens in Florida, don't think it's an isolated event if you're living in Montana, if you're living in Idaho, if you're living in where our friend just called from, Michigan, that somehow you are isolated. All right, let's go ahead and talk to Ted. Ted, come on in. Ted, you're hot.
Hi. Listen, I wanted to call in to disagree with you about the zoning.
Sure.
I think zoning is a bad thing.
Okay.
If you look at the recently, there was a study, a government study. I mean, excuse me if I don't remember all the
Details.
But Houston was by far the best as far as homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to San Francisco, New York, all the other major places. And one of the reasons why is because we have that we don't have zoning, so that people can do exactly that. They can buy a large house, for example, and turn it into apartments, and thus provide affordable housing. Whereas other people, other cities, they're stuck in those big houses. Either you have the money to buy a big house, or you don't have a place to live.
Okay, let me ask you it this way: would you like to have a chemical plant right next to you?
Of course not.
Okay, and that's what zone. What you're. First of all, I agree with what you just said. Right. In other words, if we have restrictive zoning, there's a good chance that you can have increases in homelessness for the same reasons that you just gave there. So that's granted. But isn't it true also that we can create zoning to mitigate that, which means creating zoning so that a chemical plant can't be built next to your home, that a strip joint can't be built next to, have these types of...
Well, I don't know about strip joint. That might be all right. But at any rate...
You're a bad man. You're a bad man.
Okay, but seriously, folks.
Yes.
Go
ahead.
Well, now there you would be getting into... I guess the issue is environmental regulations as opposed to... because the main driver for producing housing is profit.
Yes.
And they want to make big houses because they get bigger profit.
True.
Even though there's more people that can afford smaller houses. And so
I think you prove another point that I preach all the time, right? We should have good private sector government. We should have a bifurcated economy the capitalist portion of it, you have laissez-faire, build what you want, etc. But you have a stopgap measure to protect those who are not privy to that market, don't you think?
Yes, I pretty much agree there.
And you know what's so funny about you agreeing with me there, my brother? Anytime I make that case, you know what folks simply do? They call me the big S word, as if it's something bad, right? And when the only word I care about is humanity, right? Making sure everybody have a home, clothes, food, and health care, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
I agree with most of your ideas. There's some things that free enterprise does better.
Can you name me one?
Well, like I said, providing affordable housing.
Let me ask you a question. And this is really important.
If you can take a resource, well, if you can take a quarter acre and make 4 houses, doesn't that provide more housing than forcing people to have a a 6,000 square foot home on their quarter acre.
I think we're talking a little bit past each other. Let me ask you the question this way, because you're right what you just said. That's why I said we're talking past each other.
But now,
Go ahead.
chemical plants
Mm-hmm.
destroy people. Mercury in your kids' drinking water
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit different than,
No, but here's what I'm
people who
saying.
speak a different language moving in next to you.
You remember earlier what you said, right? You said that a lot of these companies find it easier to create a bigger home because they get a bigger bang for their buck. That's one of the things that you said earlier, and that is what a capitalist company is supposed to do, right? Maximize its profit, so it does the most important thing to make the most profit. There's nothing wrong about that. That's how the system works. But that leaves all of those people without capital or the wherewithal, or the teachers, the people that society have decided to pay small amounts of monies. That leaves them holding the bag. And I revert my question again. I think you said earlier that there are certain things the private sector does better. I think in having having hundreds of thousands of people thinking about things, doing different things, I think it's great. That's how you get pizza shop making different flavors, etc. But I think there are certain basic things that I can't fathom how the private sector can do better when profit is but an expense. In other words, all things being
when
equal.
you make it profitable
Mm-hmm.
for people to produce more housing.
How do you do that?
Well, like I said, you can put 4 $150,000 homes on a quarter acre,
Right.
as opposed to 1 $350,000.
And that's good. And then one less person, right? And let's say now, instead of having that corporation that who's going to make on for profit on that, let's say $200,000 or $300,000. Let's say we had the county government.
It's not necessarily corporations; it's individuals. They're large. They buy a large home, and then I don't know, the main breadwinner dies, and they rent it out.
That's
they
fine.
divide it into small apartments.
That's not where I'm going. I mean, I agree with you there. But what I'm saying is what we have in reality is if you go into the Heights or if you go into these other parts of Houston, what you find are people, these corps come in, they buy up a land, it causes inflation on homes in that area. And they said, oh, we can do it better. They charge a lot of money. They make a lot of profit out of that. Guess who can do that as well? The county government could just as well do that. In that small lot, put a whole bunch of homes out there. There's not a profit motive. The homes cost less. I mean, we can have a whole lot of different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying...
Of course, the problem with the government providing things is you get into bureaucracy.
And that is where you come in. That's where you come in. I always tell people this, right? And tell me if you agree with this. We have learned to disengage from government. And I want, even with my program here, I want us to be more engaging with government. What is in the preamble? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a better union, we the people. Government is we the people. I think we have to make it we the people again. Your thoughts?
Well, again, I agree with you in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking in that particular problem and response to housing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our lack of zoning, our lack of an insistence that houses be a certain square foot,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's a positive thing.
Well, by the way, I can't disagree with what you just said at all.
I
cannot disagree with what you just said there. And
I think that obviously the residential and industrial, there should be regulations about industrial, chemicals and stuff like that.
Hey, Ted, I think there's more agreement here than you realize, including with what you just said there, because I consider some of what you said just something that can be written in zoning laws, and making sure some other things are not in the zoning laws. And that's where I think when people sit down and talk together, compromises can occur, or sometimes not even compromises. Sometimes you actually see that you're talking past each other. And that's what I think it's all about when you get together and talk. Anything else you got to go before I move on, sir?
No,
Thank you
just
so.
that one thing. I wanted to make the case for, I guess,
Well, you made your
free
case, sir.
enterprise and housing.
You made your case, and I
Have a
think
nice one, sir.
you made your case, and you did a good
And
job of it. Thank you so kindly for
And
giving
you
us a
gotta
call.
admit, which one is worse for your environment, a naked woman or a chemical waste plant?
Hey, behave yourself, Ted. Behave yourself. You have a wonderful day. Folks, it's Ted Great or what? 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. We'll be coming on with somebody else shortly. Folks, the way I'm trying to do the show, and you guys are going to tell me whether you want it that way, is I come with a subject, right? But I want the community to engage. So I may bifurcate my subject simply to talk to what you want to talk about. And by the way, welcome aboard online, Bridge MCP, Eric Hayes, Lee Grant. Thank you guys for being with us online. Eric says you don't move to said chemical plant, but people that work there live close by. Yeah, we have that right now in Pasadena, don't we? And I think it's also known as Cancer Alley. Remember that? Let's see who else is with us. Let's see. All right. It looks like we got a call. Come on in, the next caller. I don't have a name, but come on in. Caller, come on in.
Hi, hello, how are you?
All right. What's your name, sir?
Jorge?
Jorge, talk to me.
Well, I kind of just wanted to stay on topic with what you have been talking about today. And also, I just wanted to say it's kind of cool being on your show. I've been listening to you for years. So it's very cool being on the show.
Great. Thank you so kindly, sir.
I guess what my main concern is, and I'm not that old. I'm like 20. I'm 25. So I'm not well versed on how the city used to be back in the day. But maybe you can, I guess, illuminate a bit for me. But how did it get to the point where, they know that they're not supposed to be building in certain areas of the city, but now, you have houses like right behind the reservoirs, and every time there's a hurricane, it floods. I guess some of it is because you have people from all over the country pouring into like this one little area in Texas.
Jorge,
But-
you listen, Jorge. First of all, the one thing that I want my 25-year-old audiences to never do is to diminish your what you have to offer within our body politic itself. Because the truth of the matter is, our generation didn't do all that well. So please, we want your input. And anybody that's 25 years old and that's engaging in politics, you're way ahead of the curve of even people my age. So first of all, thank you for doing that. Secondly, to answer your question directly, it's amazing what money can do, right? What is money going to do? It's amazing that we knew back in the 80s that we shouldn't build in the Barker Reservoir, the Cypress Reservoir. We knew that. But of course, somebody comes up and they say, we can elevate, we can put some land a little bit higher, and we're taking them out of the floodplain, forgetting the laws of volume, right? That you can displace, but that water is going to have to go somewhere else. You get it. You get it. You're asking about it. You get it. But before I continue answering that question, folks, I want you guys to remember that tonight we have a special program between 6 and 8. We will be covering the Abbott versus Beto debate. Tonight, again, between 6 and 8, we will be covering the Abbott and Beto debate. And we're going to ask you guys, starting at 6, to call on in and let us know your thoughts about this election. Anyway, continue, please, Jorge.
Well, now that you've explained it a little bit better, and it's something that I've noticed, not just here in Texas, but like in other states, like, for example, in Louisiana. They build these houses, next to places they shouldn't be building. But then I don't know if it's just me or if it's really a trend, but the people that seem to be affected the most are, people of color, like Hispanic, the black community,
Oh, I
people
have a
like,
story for you, brother. You are so right. And again, it's big. Look, you. It is always easier to hurt the marginalized, right? Folks who have been historically marginalized, and those aren't fancy words. That is, if my white brothers and sisters talk to me about this many times, right? They have something to do, right? And they have a choice to make. They have two very good friends, equally good friends. One POC, one white. It is all that implicit bias generally say, well, that person is used to that hurt. This other person isn't. What would one more hurt do? It is just an implicit bias kind of thing that occurs and that we have to kind of extricate from America. But it's true. Let me give you an instance with the flood in here in that the major floods we've had, right? It was easy for a Kingwood to say throw more gates onto the dam in Houston, right? And and that way we can let out more water faster so that Kingwood doesn't flood. But what does that really mean? There are people who live downriver, and if you're sending more water downriver, by the way, guess who lives downriver? And those are the things that you have to, when you're balancing these issues, those are the things you have to think about. People are not necessarily doing it because they're bad people. Implicit bias makes you a good person just doing wrong.
well, that's pretty much all I had.
Well, thank you.
Again, thank you.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to say thank you for like all the facts and all the knowledge that you help spread and all the awareness and stuff like that.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. Please remember to tell folks about Politics Done Right. Let folks know what's going on, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, you take care, too. Okay, let's go ahead and take Mac. Mac is on the line. Come on in, Mac.
Yes, sir. This is Mac.
Talk to me, Mac.
Just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Jorge was asking why people build.
Let me ask you one favor, Mac. Could you turn your radio down now that you're on air? Because I'm getting the feedback and we're a bit delayed.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. And while you do that, let me just tell folks, please, folks, remember that tonight, between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., we're covering the Abbott-Beto debate, coverage between 6 and 8, and we are going to be taking calls from you. So call us starting at 6. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts on the gubernatorial contest. All right, go ahead, my friend, Mac.
Yeah, I mean, to the young man, what's going on here is that we can't, eat our cakes and have it.
Mm-hmm.
Folks in Texas don't want to be regulated.
Right.
They don't want any zoning.
Right.
Which means people do whatever they want to do. They build whatever they want to do. Like you cited, does anybody want a chemical plant, next to their home? And they rightfully said no, but they don't like zoning.
Right.
They don't like to be controlled on anything. They don't want to be regulated on anything. Same thing as who would like to have a gas station next to their home?
Right.
Those are the issues, that oftentimes we want to eat our cake and we want to have it also. We don't want to be regulated, but we don't want certain things, happening.
Matt, can I interrupt? Because piggybacking onto what you said, we don't want to be told what to do to some extent, right? But here's an interesting thing, right? While we don't have zoning, we have strong deed, we support, and the state supports having strong deed restrictions. And which communities generally have the ability to have strong deed restrictions? Communities where people are all engaged. Working class communities don't have a lot of folks who have the time or the intent to engage as much, so they don't get the real strong deed restrictions that otherwise others would have to enforce what you just spoke about, right?
Yes.
So,
which means they have to get together to be able to push back on things happening.
Right, exactly.
And some of the suburbs don't want something like, the affordable housing built anywhere close to their own suburban homes, that kind of thing, because they push back on it.
Exactly. I remember one time I had a plank missing on my fence. Hey, you got to fix that right away. But hey, that's how it goes. Not complaining I did need to fix a plank on
But
my
how
fence.
can that really be fair? Because you don't want to be regulated, but you're pushing certain things back and saying, no, people can't do certain things.
Right.
Isn't that regulation?
Right. Well, again, that's what I said. I mean, the state, our laws are written for those who have the ability to participate in government. One of the reasons so many attempt to prevent some from voting is because when you get a true representative democracy, a democracy that represents the people, the ideas of all the people come into the fold. And sometimes those ideas take away certain privileges from some who don't want to do certain things. That's just how, that's just how it is, right? And that's what we're living through right now. And that is the kind of chaos that we are starting to extricate out of our communities, out of our government, out of our social fabric. It's going to take a while, but we have to maintain it. We have to constantly do it. Anything else, Mac, before we move on?
What's the solution here? What is the suggestion?
Actually, I have the solution, brother. I have the solution, and it's what we do here, right? If you know, let me just tell you, I first respect everybody's point of view. I don't necessarily agree with you, and if I don't agree with you, I am going to try to make my point in such a manner that you refute it as best you can. And eventually, if you are a smart thinking person, and if I am a smart thinking person, I am going to, if you looked at me and you convinced me of something, we're going to change. The problem right now is that we have institutions whose job is to make sure we don't talk. Because what they realize is as follows. You ever go to a game, right? And you have all the parents there and they're just joyful with their kids running a race and they're participating in a game and all of that. And they have all this talk that's going on and they're agreeing on mostly everything. They love their kids. They love going to the park. They love doing all these things the same, right? And there are a couple of things that make these people different. We have externalities, the Cato Foundation and all these outside sources that try to say, look at what those folks are doing there that's going to hurt you. Look at what that person is doing. They use race, creed, ethnicity. They use all kinds of stuff to create divisions among people, right? And what I do in my job as an activist journalist is the following. I don't play the game. Everybody has carte blanche. Everybody has access. Every single person, I don't care who you are, has value. And when everybody starts to get that as opposed to the value to fight against each other, things start to change. How do I know it works? Because I get it done. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, it's like I have a problem trying to wrap my head around these issues that an average citizen or a voter don't seem to really do some serious critical thinking about certain things.
Right.
Take, for instance, this is a little bit of a digression here, all right? We don't like controls, which is exactly what regulations and zoning is all about.
Right.
But we are also, on the other hand, controlling what women can or regulating what women can.
You hit the nail on the head. I want to do
how does that work?
I got a station call here. Then, folks, you're listening to KPFT 90.1 FM Houston. Please give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. A lot of lines open. I will repeat once again, 713-526-5738. Look, let me tell you, Mac, you hit the nail on the head. People when people say they don't want controls, what they mean is I don't want anybody to have control over things that affect me, but that doesn't stop me from wanting to control what others do. And it's that mindset that we have to work on. That is actually sort of a paternalistic mindset where I can tell you what to do, but you cannot tell me what to do. I can tell a woman what to do with her body. I can tell those darn immigrants that are running from some of the policies that we created in their countries. I can tell them to stay out, right? And when you start to change that hierarchical system, that is what it's going to take. And what I'm saying right now is, people too often feel impotent to do anything. And our goal is to ensure, and I learned this at a conference that I recently went to in New York. I used to say, I want to empower people. Well, I don't have neither the power or the right to talk about empowering people, because people are already empowered. It is it is trying to ask them to use their power to do what needs to be done. Follow?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a little disheartening to see what is actually happening to us.
Right.
And somehow we don't seem to see. We have a beautiful country out here.
Yes, we do.
And we're trying to tear it apart by ourselves. So people who haven't really lived in a different country don't really know what they really have here.
Right.
And I feel very, 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 depressed, really, to use that word, to think of how they're going to feel when they get to exactly where they want us to go.
And that's where I'm saying, my friend.
It's not a good place.
Mac, let me tell you, that is where I'm saying the following. My goal is not to get people depressed. My goal is to get people engaged. The best solution to depression, the best solution to feeling like things are falling apart, is to engage and rebuild them. And I can tell you that from experience. You can. I wrote a book called "As I See It: Class Warfare: The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom," and it occurred when the fighting occurred. The fighting among the Affordable Care Act and all these things occurred in 2008. So I wrote this book in 2010, I believe it was. And the idea was, I am not going to sit back and not do anything. I am actually going to engage and talk to people ad nauseum. And I knew that one person could have an effect because of the geometric progression. One person can have an effect. Think what two can do, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what I'm telling you is, just like you're engaging today, this conversation that you and I just had is listened to by thousands of people. And this conversation alone would have engaged many other folks that are listening to what we're talking about. So that's what it's all about, brother, engaging. And thank you very much for calling Politics Done Right on KPFT.
Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. You have a wonderful day now. All right, folks, 713-526-5738. All lines are open, and we still have 8 minutes to go. 713-526-5738. Please remember, tonight, between 6 and 8, it's Abbott versus Beto coverage. We are covering that program, and we will be taking calls beginning exactly at 6 o'clock for the program. So please remember, KPFT is live again. There's nothing like having us live again, folks. 713-526-5738. Is there something that's bothering you? Is there something that you want to talk about? I spoke about having 3 subjects today. While I spoke about the risk in Florida, and many of the callers who spoke about the Barker Cypress risk here kind of allowed me to cover much of what I was going to say in there. The other subject that I was going to cover, or that I am covering, is when we fight, we win. San Francisco airport workers end strike after a pay victory. Americans see every day on the stock market, not on the stock market, but we see all these CEOs saying, oh, we had a record profits. We made records amount of monies, and the executives of the companies this year qualify for a 30% bonus or a 50% bonus or a 150% bonus if you're in the oil business. All these great things that you see, success for these people, success built on your backs. And then you go ahead and say, I'd like a raise. And they say, we can't afford it. But so many others are making money. You know what I love about this story? Just even the title tells you, when we fight, we win. You have to remember, there is no corporation without you. There are no executives without you. There are no executive bonuses without you. So when that executive gets his bonus, make sure you get yours. Don't allow any less at all. Every single American citizen who is working for a wage should be unionized. I repeat, for the caller that just dropped, give us a call again. We can still get your call in. Give us a call again, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. We are waiting for your call. Anyhow, so it was wonderful. It was wonderful seeing that the title here where we said, if you fight, when we fight, we win. Remember what things are all about. You know, they don't want us to engage. They are fearful that we will engage. When I say we, I'm talking about all those that are looking for that pay raise, all those that are looking for those better medical benefits, all those that are looking for all of this. It is there for you to take. Don't let anyone fool you into believing you don't have the power that you have, because you do. You'll hear me say this over and over again, program after program. I'll always interject these types of building statements into the fold. And the reason why we do that, folks, is because we want to make sure that you use your power from within. It is essential for a successful, equitable society for us to all use our power from within. Never forget that. And nobody can take that away from you until somebody takes your vote permanently. Again, you can do it. Folks, tonight, between 6 and 8 p.m., we are having Abbott versus Beto. We're talking about Abbott versus Beto. It's a call-in show. It's between 6 and 7 till, and we're then carrying the debate live. But we want to hear your thoughts before the debate. And then we want to see after the debate, I'll cover that on my next show. After the debate, did they really get it done? Did Beto get to Abbott? Did Abbott get to Beto? We want to know. 713-526-5738. We got 3 minutes. If somebody gets in real quick, we can still get it done. 713. The show coming after this is El Señor Tom Hartman. My good friend Tom Hartman will be after this program today, folks. Don't forget, tune on in. Because, again, you want to hear some good progressive info. I always looked up to Tom and say, Tom, man, when I see him at Netroots or when I see him out at one of these conventions, I always make sure to go spend some time with him on his show, and he usually comes on Politics Done Right as well. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Folks, again, it's between 6 and 8 p.m. tonight. Give us a call. Give us a call. Talk about the Abbott-Beto debate. I hope it's a healthy debate. I hope Beto covers the issues that he needs to cover. I hope Beto covers the issues that he needs to cover, because this election is going to be a big one. Mike Collier actually is probably the one to watch. Mike Collier is probably the one to watch as Lieutenant Governor running against Dan Patrick. Remember something very importantly. In Texas, the Lieutenant Governor has more power than the governor, because he's the one who decides what laws actually get passed in the state of Texas. So we're coming up close to the end of the program. I want to thank you guys so kindly for listening. All the callers that called in with those very smart questions, all of you, that is what makes a good on-air radio station. Having these great callers that both bring and take. So my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And folks, you know how I end this program every single time. I am what? Out.